Minecraft is boring. Okay, that was a bit dramatic. It's far from boring. But I feel like we need something to reignite the fun of playing survival. So, I'm pushing my building skills further than ever before in the most challenging task a Minecraft builder could ever embark on. Transforming literally the entire game based on your crazy ideas. To create the ultimate survival world. What have I got myself into? Together, we've already created a lot. From new structures to new game mechanics and, yeah, honestly, I got pretty carried away already. Every episode, I transform a new biome. And today, I'm revamping the Pale Garden. Now don't get me wrong, this update includes some insanely cool new features. But I couldn't help but want more. I'm thinking new builds and mechanics, a story for the Creaking, an epic boss battle, and well, let's just get on with it, shall we? First, I cracked on with the landscape, which I made a speedy start with in World Painter, which allows me to paint terrain outside of Minecraft. I then hopped in game, added some more varied elevation, and even created some areas inspired by the Lord of the Rings Dead Marshes. The thought of stumbling through endless trees to escape a creaking, only to discover you need to cross a misty marshland to get away, is pretty terrifying stuff. So I've got some pretty eerie terrain sorted, but now it's time to paint. I'll need a simple block palette. Yeah, that'll do. And then I can type up a fancy command to apply a fractal noise pattern to the terrain. Perfect. This kind of blotchy pattern makes the ground look like it's more waterlogged in certain areas, just like a boggy marshland. Whack on some shaders with rain puddle effects, and I've created the ultimate bog. Simple, but effective.
Am I a joke to you?
No, a different kind of bog. I didn't mean...
Just get on with the trees, bro.
Okay, since the Creaking is literally a walking tree mob, which will actually be transforming later, I feel like it makes sense to use it to inspire the trees. The Creaking looks super gnarly and twisted, so the trees should match, right? Well, apparently, the Pale Garden trees are inspired by willow trees. Maybe they aren't a perfect match, but this has given me some ideas on how I can improve them. And whilst building some new and improved trees, I got thinking about the story behind this place. I mean, what if the Pale Garden was once a dense forest biome, preserved in ash from a nearby volcanic eruption? Sounds pretty far-fetched, but I did literally plonk a custom volcanic biome right next door. Okay, hold up. When I said dense, I didn't mean that dense. I think I've just made one giant cursed pale oak tree. I don't actually know if Creaking could even spawn in here. Maybe it's a bit too dense. Okay, let's just tweak the settings a little bit, and maybe this is a little bit better. Yeah, that's more like it. Obviously, this is a less dense area, but I can definitely crank it up a notch here and there. So now I've got to do that, but maybe 100 more times across the entire biome so that I don't crash the server. Oh, wish me luck, guys. Anyway, with my mess undone, I gave it another shot. Thank the tree gods I could save these as blueprints and just edit the density of the brush I was using to plot these down. And I'd finally filled up the whole biome with trees. But why do I kind of hate it? Don't get me wrong, from the ground it looks pretty cool, but there's not much variation, and from up here it just looks so messy to me. And I don't know if it's just because it's 6 AM and I've been placing great trees all night long, or yeah, maybe it's that. Okay, so after a short nap, it was back to the drawing board. And I got thinking, sure, this is the Pale Garden, and it needs to have some pretty dense areas, but I could definitely create some creepy clearings with scorched trees and rotting stumps left in the wake of those volcanic eruptions I mentioned earlier. That'll also help to break up the landscape and hopefully scratch that irritating itch I've been feeling about this environment. Long story short, I pretty much scrapped the whole thing, smoothed out the terrain so it was a little more seamless, and then invested more time into each area. I even carved out a space for the boss battle we'll be working on later, surrounded by broken trees and rocks. I guess whatever boss lives here has some anger issues. And after taking this more varied approach to each area of the biome, things really came together. There was finally enough variation without losing the essence of the vanilla biome. You'll even spot some glow lichen in the shrubs to add an ambient glow across the biome. And of course, the new eye blossoms, which specifically open at night. This place is already creeping me out, guys. But I finally feel like it's come together nicely, and I got thinking, the story about the volcanic ash gives me the perfect excuse to build a totally new structure, the Pale Mansion. which would be a twist on our old favourite, the Woodland Mansion. So how am I going to build this pale mansion structure? Well, I started with what any sane Minecraft builder would do, and hopped on a plane to freezing cold Germany in the middle of winter? As crazy as it sounds, I knew I had to make this trip. I needed some first-hand inspiration. It wasn't long before I stumbled across the most intimidating building I've ever seen, which also happens to be one of the largest cathedrals in the world. This place honestly felt like someone switched off the world height limit, got carried away with a Minecraft build, and lost all sense of scale. So after making myself feel incredibly small, we then drove across snowy Germany to find a castle that could inspire the Pale Mansion concept. And I've got to say, I think we succeeded. Hiking around the snowy mountains surrounding this epic castle was tough. But seeing this awesome structure from all angles really gave me some cool ideas for what I could build and how it should feel for you guys in-game. Okay, I'm back. I've just about defrosted my fingers and I'm feeling inspired to build. But if I'm going to release this video for you guys anytime soon, I need to speed up a lot. So let's crank things up a notch. I'm going to challenge myself to build this entire Pale Mansion in just 24 hours. Right, so it's about 4 PM right now, and to get started, I'm whipping up a plan of the structure in colourful wool. This way, I can clearly see all of the shapes and proportions of the buildings, but more importantly, when it comes to painting, I can select specific sections to apply my palettes to. Inspired by my adventures in Germany, I was able to speed through the planning in just a few hours. And there's going to be a ton of space for an epic interior. Okay, next I've got to detail and paint. And this is the part that always takes a surprisingly long time, especially for the first few sections because I'm always trying to find that perfect style for the build. But I locked in and stuck at it, adding as much variety across the build as I could. No, it was going so well. Okay, it's currently 12:25. My server's crashed on me, so we're going to take a quick snack break and hope it's back up and running by the time I get back. Luckily, things were back up and running again when I got back. So, it's montage time. Guys, it's 10 AM, but it's finally done. Okay, wait a minute. I do love how this looks, but you know what? We can do better. There's something missing, not just from the build, but from the story. And I've just had the coolest idea. It might be a bit ambitious for 24 hours, and I've only got 6 hours left, and I still need to do the interior. But let's see what I can do. So, what if a giant tree creature tried to save the Woodland Mansion during the eruptions, and now lies dormant beneath what is now the Pale Mansion? This is a crazy task I've given myself, so I'm going to try to work smart here. I've sculpted tons of organics over the years. There's got to be something I can use as a frame. Aha! Here it is. Meet my old buddy Poseidon, god of the seas and one of my coolest organic builds from my Underwater Kingdom project. I'm thinking I can use this big boy as a frame and... yeah, okay. This might be a problem. Despite being giant, this dude is still way too small. I guess I've got to make a new frame. I decided to just start with the head sculpt first, as that's the most important part, and would give me a good idea on how much of the body will be poking up from the terrain beneath. I'm really having to trust the process at this point because this guy is looking wild. I've never really done a sculpt like this before, and I'm starting to wonder whether this is a good idea. And with only about 5 hours to go at this point, I've got to make this worth it. I think I've finally figured out why it looks so cursed. It's the nose. I think it would work if we were giving him a beard, but by itself it just looks really out of place. I'm good. Okay, yeah, that's better. Still looking pretty mad with all the colours, but I think this could work. Now I've just got to make a frame for the body so I can start adding branches on top, and then I can make all the final adjustments. So, what's the deal with this giant tree guy anyway? Well, the biome used to be a forest, protected by tree folk known as Grove Guardians, which we'll learn more about later. When the Pale Garden fell into danger from the eruptions of the volcanic basalts, a giant Grove Guardian emerged from the depths of the forest, lifting the Woodland Mansion atop its head. The forest villagers took sanctuary in the Grove Guardian's chest, and then using its huge branch arms, the Guardian carved out a moat to help protect the inhabitants of the forest from the fires. Speaking of arms, I thought I could try using my buddy Poseidon again for the hands. I don't really think the proportion quite matches up. Like, what is this? It's like a tiny baby hand. Thankfully, I should just be able to select this, double it in size, and voila. We've got a hand that's a bit more in proportion. So, with its perfectly in proportion hands, the giant Grove Guardian used up all of its strength to create a protective moat, sacrificing itself to save its forest friends, and now lies dormant. But inside its chest, its heart became a conduit for the power of the Creaking, who were taking the opportunity to corrupt the biome and the Guardians left within it. Unable to channel enough power to animate the giant Guardian's corpse, the Creaking heart latched onto the nearest thing it could animate, bringing the Pale Mansion to life and corrupting the souls within it. Okay, yeah, I know I sound like I've officially lost it, literally bringing builds to life, but let me explain. This biome was originally designed to feel lifeless, right? Yet the Creaking mob concept takes something static from the environment and does the opposite. It brings it to life as a mob. So what if I did the same with the Pale Mansion? My head went straight to that movie Monster House, which certainly traumatized me as a kid, and having the structure actually be alive and interacting with you as a player would be an insanely fun and immersive experience. It will be like a giant Creaking mansion. This place is looking absolutely insane, but I've only got 2 hours left, so it's time to head inside and get as much as I can finished for the interior. Now this build is insanely complicated, so just dissecting it in a way that makes sense was challenging enough. It's going to be an even bigger challenge for you guys to find the Pale Dagger hidden in this place. And what's the Pale Dagger, you ask? Well, it just so happens to be the only object in the entirety of the Ultimate Survivor world that can destroy the Creaking heart that has brought the Pale Mansion to life. So it's kind of important. Anyway, you guys are already seeing way too much. All you need to know is that this is like one giant, lively escape room packed with surprises. From moving doorways, hidden passages, interactive puzzles, and much more. And someone has to live in this place, right? I wasn't going to make your escape from the mansion that easy. The inhabitants of this Pale Mansion were also corrupted by the Creaking heart, becoming pale shadows of their former selves, now known as the Pale Revenant, a brand new custom mob I decided to add to the map, taking the original Woodland Mansion's mobs and giving them a spooky makeover. These ghostly figures wander the halls of the Pale Mansion, making your escape much more challenging. Okay, well, I'm exhausted, but it's pretty much finished. This was a lot to do in 24 hours. I didn't quite get the interior completely done, but I can whip up the rest of that with the help of a few friends off camera to keep it a surprise for you guys when you play for yourselves. This has got to be one of the coolest additions to the world so far, not just aesthetically, but functionally too. Jeez, I've got to admit, the more I'm adding to this biome, the more I feel like I'm being watched. Okay, so, remember those forest villagers who took sanctuary in the Guardian's chest during all that chaos? Well, it's time to restore their village, but with a spooky twist. The giant Grove Guardian tried to protect the forest village from harm, extending its roots under the biome and pushing them up through the ground when they reached the village. These giant roots, despite the Grove Guardian's intentions, caused more harm than good, leaving the village in tatters and displacing huge chunks of the earth around it. The villagers, however, were still grateful for their Guardian's sacrifice, and upon return to their homes, they decided to honour this sacrifice by rebuilding their village around the Guardian's roots, so that they could remain close to the Protector for generations to come. So with this spooky site being a big part of the Pale Villagers' culture, I got to work plotting out their new homes. I really wanted to make this place feel full of character, with tall rooftops and stacked buildings, especially since it's built amongst such unusual landscape. So I took a deep dive into inspirations from Eastern Europe, from the awesome wooden structures of Romania's Maramureș region, to some really unique buildings in Bosnia, Moldova, and many more. Apparently this church in Romania was built to thank God for protection during the plague of 1710, so it actually lines up perfectly with the lore of our Pale villagers, honouring the Grove Guardian's sacrifice with this Pale village. And as you can see, I've plotted out a bunch of buildings amongst the Guardian's roots. We have a ton to work with here, so let's get started with the Pale Village profession buildings. First up, the temple. Now I really love this build style, and I think it really suits this eerie colour palette. It's all pretty grey since we're in the Pale Garden, but I added beams, supports, window frames and other details with some mud and spruce thrown in to break things up and add a little warmth. If only this was all as quick and easy as it looks in these time lapses. And on the inside, I focused on more Slavic influences, as I really wanted to have some fun with Minecraft's paintings. This may look like a church, and whilst it has some church influences just like Minecraft's original temple, these villagers have their own religion. And you guessed it, they worship their very own nature deities. Their Grove Guardian buddy did do them a solid after all. You'll spot a bunch of details in here, from confessionals to an epic organ I made using banner patterns. I also thought, since this biome isn't exactly thriving with the creaking causing havoc, it would make sense for the villagers to import some of their goods from other biomes. So I decided to build them a general store, where they can stock up on imported supplies as well as goods made within the village. Inside you'll find just about anything and everything, with lots of food and general goods on level 1, equipment and storage on level 2, and then on level 3 I thought it'd be nice to have a little community centre, where the villagers can convene to discuss important Pale Garden matters. Anyway, you guys have already seen enough interiors for now, you'll have to discover the rest for yourselves when you download the world. Keeping an eye on the lay of the land, which seems to be changing all the time with all these tree folk moving things about. This is the home of the Pale Village's cartographer. Obviously, I whacked this one at the highest point in the village, creating this cool, elongated building that gets a nice 360 view of the biome. I whipped up a giant spyglass for the upper section, and I thought it'd be cool to add some flags so the cartographer can keep an eye on the wind, since the biome often gets ash blown across from the volcanic basalts next door, so the villagers have to be ready for that. Last but not least, I built this little globe statue outside, just so everyone knows where to find the cartographer. Next, the lumberjack. Now I know it seems a little odd to have a lumberjack in a village full of tree worshippers. Hear me out. With the creaking overrunning the biome, felling the trees is actually a very important job. Without keeping things under control, the whole biome will become too dense and dangerous, and the creaking will eliminate all other life in the Pale Garden. This place also has an important purpose in your survival playthrough too. You guys told me how annoying it was to chop down custom trees, ending up with a bunch of unwanted materials in your inventory. So our new lumberjack friend has a solution. Visiting the lumberjack villager and completing his requests will unlock the tree feller enchantment, which will allow you to chop entire trees in one, or maybe a few, fell swoops, without cluttering your inventory with the random blocks. Looks like our lumberjack friend needs to chop back some of these roots before they take over their backyard. Speeding onto the last couple of professions, I whacked out this unique design for the mason, who's got a serious production line going on with both the power of wind and water. I wonder what all this power is being used for. Finally, the Fletcher. Working in tandem with the lumberjack, the Fletcher creates arrows from all the wood collected, keeping the pale oak trees under control. And what Fletcher is complete without a shooting range? This one even has distance markers. How fancy. Okay, wow, this place is really coming along, but the burnout is hitting me big time now, especially with all the technical issues behind the scenes. So maybe I could use a hand detailing the rest of these buildings I've plotted out. Luckily, I knew just the guy. My good friend Brune, who just so happens to be an expert at gnarly trees, to help finish up the village. So the villagers rebuilt their village around the roots of the Grove Guardian to stay close to their protector. But the creaking, of course, has other plans. That big old creaking heart in the Grove Guardian's chest is said to be getting stronger, and the roots of the Dormant Guardian are beginning to sprawl out across the village, with its tendrils slowly clutching at all these buildings. I guess you guys better defeat the mansion pretty quick, otherwise there might not be a village left. But for now, the village is going strong, thanks to Brune. Wow, this place is looking absolutely awesome. Now, just to add a few finishing touches and... perfect. So, one last thing. In an attempt to keep their village lit up and protected from the creatures lurking in the shadows, the Pale Villagers enchanted a giant eye blossom to light up their home. The blossom seeds have spread, blooming across the village, but wait, no! Who stole the eye blossom? In all seriousness, you guys are going to need to get this back when you explore the world yourselves. This quest won't be easy though. The eye blossom has been well hidden, and can only be retrieved during the Pale Garden's special biome event. You may remember the biome clock inspired by the Hunger Games in the island archives. Every biome on this island has an environmental event on a specific day. And the Pale Gardens is the Ashen Fog, a thick, ashy mist blowing across from the volcanic basalts, which renders the air unbreathable. To retrieve the giant eye blossom, you'll have to explore the village when it's safe and obtain the gas mask recipe. Once crafted and equipped, you'll be able to safely return during the Ashen Fog, retrieve the giant eye blossom, and restore the village's light source. Let me know in the comments your ideas for future quests in the other biomes. Dude, you've been following me this entire video. Can I help you? Do you really think I'm doing all this in survival? Stop trying to hit me. Wait, actually, you've just reminded me. It's finally time for your transformation. I guess that explains you following me around. So as you guys know, long ago the Pale Garden was a very different biome, known by Minecrafters as the Forest. The biome was full of life, thriving with magical creatures and protected by wandering tree folk known as the Grove Guardians. When the neighbouring biome erupted with volcanoes, the forest was set ablaze and covered in ash, and almost all life in the biome was wiped out. The Grove Guardians, lost without the life of the forest to protect, became hollow shells of their former selves, and the biome's eerie silence is said to have driven them to madness. Now known as the Creaking, they wander in the shadows, sneaking up on unsuspecting victims to capture their souls. The orange glow behind their eyes are embers of the fires that blaze throughout their home, and many believe that destroying a Creaking's heart will set free the spirit of the Grove Guardian trapped within it. I'm not gonna lie guys, I didn't realise the Creaking was so misunderstood. I kinda feel bad now. But you'll have an opportunity to vanquish the Creaking and free the Grove Guardian spirits when you play the map for yourselves. No spoilers, but get ready for a quest. And on the topic of quests, you may remember that once you complete all the quests in a biome, you'll unlock the biome boss and get one step closer to unlocking the Stronghold Gateway back at the Island Archives. It's a whole process, but you'll get the hang of it. So that brings us to our final and arguably most important area of our Pale Garden biome, and the very first boss battle zone of our ultimate survival world, the Pale Glade. I thought it would be really cool for this place to feel like a battleground for the biomes. The original forest biome that was thriving before the eruptions versus the Pale Garden, an eerie mirror image of the forest, corrupted by the Creaking. This archway represents the elements fighting against each other, with flashes of green representing the forest fighting back, and the twisted tendrils of pale oak and glowing orange of the Creaking heart representing the corruption of the Pale Garden. And, engraved in the floor of the battle zone is an eye, representing the ever-watchful eye of the Creaking, always lurking in the shadows. Now this is an awesome spot for a battle, but what exactly are you guys going to be battling here? Okay guys, the Pale Glade battleground is built, but what are we actually going to do for the boss?
Well, it's got to be a giant Creaking, right? I feel like everyone will be shouting through their screens at us if we don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it ties in perfectly with the story, and who doesn't want to fight a giant tree monster?
Jeez, whoa, look. Why did he just... Why did he just look like he had an accident?
It's his weak point.
Jeez, look at this dude, he's massive.
Look at his butt cheeks. He's like an amplified version of the original Creaking.
Yeah. Oh, see ya.
Where did you go? So with the base concept being an obvious choice, we had to think about attacks and functionality.
Ooh, how about a root attack? We can have the boss like reach into the floor, grow these long roots underground, and they can sprout up around the player and trap them there.
That might be a little ambitious, Steph. I don't even know.
What, like this?
Whoa, whoa! What's happened? I'm trapped! I've got to do skill checks. Get me out of here! I'm free! Okay, I'm not going to spoil everything. You guys will have to learn for yourselves how to deal with this big boy. But we did come up with a cool idea for health regeneration.
So, I thought to regenerate health, the boss could spawn these Creaking Heart totems, which gradually replenish its health bar until they're destroyed.
Oh yeah, I like the idea of that. That sounds great. Right, well there's a ton more to add, Godder. It's time to work your magic to finalise this bad boy. Obviously most of this has got to stay top secret so that he's a worthy opponent when you play the world for yourselves. I'll give you two some privacy.
Okay.
So with the final boss mechanics securely in Godder's hands, this is how our Pale Garden has turned out. That That was quite a journey. We literally traveled to a different country, took on a 24-hour build challenge, created an entirely custom structure, new mobs, an entire boss battle, and a ton more. We have so many biomes left to transform, so don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with the project, and let me know your ideas for the next one in the comments.